royal watcher. I don't really pay attention. And the love that they have is really, really moving. And I just wanted to do anything. There's so much more she could have said.
What kind of prince flees in the dead of night, abandoning the fairy tale he sold the world? This isn't a plot twist. This is a detonation. Prince Harry, a private jet. A deserted California runway. No wife, no children. No carefully staged photo op. Just a man in a duffel bag escaping into the sky. His destination? The very gilded cage he spent for years, a best-selling memoir, and a $100 million Netflix deal to condemn. The rebel prince wasn't running from the crown. He was sprinting back into its shadow. Why? What seismic crack could force a man to reverse a global narrative overnight? The answer isn't in a palace. It's in a vault, belonging to one man, Tyler Perry, the billionaire godfather, the guardian angel, the human safe house. He has just become the forensic accountant of their downfall, and he did it without raising his voice. This is the story of a sanctuary that became a crime scene, of a narrative built on whispered strategies and rehearsed tears, now echoing in a released recording for the world to hear. This is about the cost of erasing the one person who documented everything. The glamour was the trap. We just adored it too much to notice. Rewind, March 2020, the world held its breath. Two of the planet's most famous people had just jumped off the royal ship. They were adrift in a sea of paparazzi flashbulbs and venomous headlines. Hollywood's gates were wary, locked. Who would touch them? The risk was magnetic, toxic. They were human grenades with royal pins pulled. Tyler Perry heard the click. And he opened his door. He didn't just offer a guest room. He offered a fortress. His $18 million Beverly Hills mansion became their witness protection program. His private jet, their escape pod. His reputation, their shield. He was the buffer between them and a world that wanted to devour their story. Meghan's voice would break speaking of him. Our protector, she'd call him, tears glistening under interview lights. He was baptized into their lore as Lilibet's godfather, a sacred, familial bond. He was the proof that goodness existed outside the cold palace walls. But Tyler Perry built an empire on a foundation of hard lessons. He didn't get to be a self-made billionaire by trusting the plot twists of other people's narratives. In the world he operates in, today's ally is tomorrow's cautionary tale. Friendship is real, but memory is negotiable. And so, while providing sanctuary, he also implemented a protocol. A gentle, silent insurance policy. He kept records, notes of conversations, audio clips from casual talks in the home cinema, footage from security cameras in common areas. It wasn't sinister. It was standard operating procedure for a man whose success is built on controlling his own story. He knew a day might come when the Sussex story would be rewritten. He simply ensured his chapter couldn't be edited without his consent, for a glorious, golden period. The alliance was the stuff of PR dreams. He was the shining knight in their Netflix documentary, the generous soul who provided the backdrop for their new beginning. The optics were perfect, the powerful, independent black mogul protecting the biracial princess and her husband from the archaic, prejudiced institution. The symbolism was a narrative goldmine. It fit, it worked. The world ate it up. Then, the air in the room changed. A chill you could almost hear. The erasure was so quiet, so meticulous, it was almost artistic. Tyler Perry's name began a slow, steady fade from the Sussex universe. It started with an edited caption, then a deleted thank you from an old interview recap. His mentions on their charitable website softened, then vanished. The role of Godfather became less a featured title, more a vague, private footnote. Archives were scrubbed. Digital breadcrumbs were swept away. To the public eye, it looked like a natural drift. Celebrities move in different circles. Friendships evolved. To Tyler Perry, seated in his Atlanta office, it looked like something else entirely. A calculated deletion. A cold, corporate decision to airbrush him out of the founding myth. The man who had provided the literal roof over their heads during an existential storm was now being treated like a compromising piece of evidence. He had been their shelter, and now he was being treated as clutter. The protector had been deemed a liability. What would you have done in his place? Swallow the slight? Or protect your legacy? Perry is not a man who swallows slights. But he is also not a man who reacts with heat. He reacts with precision. He didn't call a lawyer. He didn't blast them on social media. He simply walked to the vault, selected a key, and let the first piece of evidence slip into the world's bloodstream. It was an audio recording, 58 seconds long. The quality was crisp, intimate. It was Harry's voice, relaxed, unfiltered, captured during an evening at Perry's home. He was talking about his father, King Charles. But the tone, it was unrecognizable from the pained, strained son we saw on Oprah's couch. Here, there was affection. Exasperation, yes, but the kind layered with familiar fondness. He was laughing, telling an anecdote about his father's stubbornness about packing his own suitcase. It was warm, human, complex. Then, the gut punch. Meghan's voice slightly off mic, clear as day, that's good. But remember to pivot to the isolation you felt after that. That's the connective tissue to the systemic neglect point. Silence for a beat. Then Harry's voice now shifted, more deliberate, right? Yes. And that's when the loneliness became institutional. The rehearsal was exposed. The raw, searing truth of a son betrayed was, in that moment, a talking point being workshopped. The emotional arc was being directed. The Oprah interview, the cornerstone of their victimhood narrative, was being treated as a script to be fine-tuned. The authenticity they sold for millions of dollars had a director. The internet imploded. The shock wasn't just about deception. It was about betrayal of emotion. People had donated their own empathy, their tears, their moral outrage. They had defended Harry and Meghan in family group chats, on Twitter threads, in coffee shops. They had felt his pain. And now, a recording suggested his pain had a stage manager, smart strategic coaching, or a catastrophic breach of public trust. Harry, according to insiders, did not take it well. He was reportedly furious, humiliated, but not at Perry. The rage was directed inwards, and at the machinery around him. The man who had left one institution to escape performance found himself headlining another. The panic was palpable, and in that panic, he made a decision that sent shockwaves through to continents. He ran. Not to another therapist or a PR spin room. He ran to the one place that was undeniably, messily real, his past. The midnight flight to London wasn't a visit. It was a fugitive's retreat. He went to the countryside, to an estate with royal connections, away from the California compound that now felt like a film set. He was alone, truly alone, perhaps for the first time since 2020. Palace insiders, always cryptic, would only say, he is here on private business, but the whispers were screams. He was meeting with old friends. He had tea with his cousin. He took long, solitary walks. He was, in essence, conducting a forensic audit of his own life. The narrative he had championed was crumbling, and he was standing in the ruins of the one he'd left behind. Do you side with his desperate search for solid ground? Or do you see a hypocrite returning to the well he poisoned? But Tyler Perry's vault had more than just audio. It had the blueprint, the strategic plan, the document that would transform scandal into an existential crisis. It was a PDF, circulating among trusted journalists. A strategic repositioning and media timeline dated April 2020. Its headers were chilling in their corporate clarity. Phase 1, Victim Narrative Consolidation. Oprah, Phase 2, Archetypes Launch and Humanitarian. Rebrand, Phase 3, Financial. Independence Showcase. Netflix, Spotify. It had target quarters, key messaging bullet points, and even potential villains to subtly reference, and at the bottom, the signatures. Harry and Meghan, loopy, real, undeniable. This wasn't a couple figuring it out. This was a startup's business plan. Their pain was a marketable asset. Their truth was a product roadmap. Every heartfelt moment, every strategic leak, every calculated silence was on that timeline. The document didn't just suggest inauthenticity. It proved premeditation. It turned their journey into a scheduled rollout. The fallout was atomic. The commentary shifted overnight. It was no longer about he said, she said palace drama. It was about fraud. Emotional fraud. The brand of authenticity they had built, the books, the speeches. The interviews now looked like a masterclass in manipulative storytelling. The commercial consequences were immediate and brutal. Meghan's American Riviera Orchard lifestyle brand, launched with such fanfare, went from buzzy to radioactive. Sales flatlined. Influencers quietly returned gifted jars of jam. Potential retail partners paused. Conversations, the magazine covers that once fought for her smile now found her unrelatable. The currency of her influence genuine. Connection had been devalued to zero. Meanwhile, Tyler Perry? He was a portrait of serene power. He gave no interviews. He posted no cryptic memes. He attended the BET Awards, accepted a Lifetime Achievement Award, and smiled a smile that said everything. His reputation wasn't just intact, it was enhanced. He was now the savvy titan who couldn't be played, the man who understood that in the 21st century, the ultimate power lies not in telling the story but in owning the raw footage. His silence was the loudest statement of all. I have more. And you all know it. The genius was devastating. He didn't need to release another thing. The thread of the untouched vault, the rest of the audio, the notes. The footage was a perpetual sword hanging over every future Sussex statement. Every denial, every new project would exist in the shadow of what else does Tyler have? He had weaponized anticipation. So where does this leave the broken pieces? Harry, in his English retreat, is facing an abyss of his own making. His choices are a study in brutal irony. Option 1, return to California. Stand by the narrative. Try to rebuild a brand on a foundation the world now knows is cracked. Live inside the performance forever, knowing the director's cut is in someone else's hands. Option 2, seek a royal reconciliation. Attempt to mend fences with a brother he mocked, a father he financially exploited in a book, and an institution he labeled as morally bankrupt. Admit that the prison he escaped might have been, in part, a stage he helped build. Neither is redemption. Both are surrenders. Meghan is trapped in a paradox of her own creation. She built an empire on being realer than the royals. Now, real is the one thing she cannot afford to be because the real story is in Perry's vault. Every move is now a reaction. Every statement is weighed against a potential counter-statement from Atlanta. Her agency has been hijacked by her own past strategic calculations, and the palace? The ancient, stuffy institution? It watches silent. It didn't have to lift a finger. It didn't have to leak a thing. Its greatest foes were undone not by tradition or protocol, but by modern tools, a recording device and a PDF. The irony is Shakespearean. The monarchy, accused of being a dusty relic, outlasted the hip, media-savvy rebrand because it never pretended to be anything but what it was, an institution. Not authentic, just consistent. The legacy of this scandal is a warning flare for the digital age. We live in the era of the personal brand, the curated life, the monetized truth. The Sussex story is the ultimate cautionary tale. It reveals the vulnerability at the heart of building a billion-dollar identity on subjective experience. When your product is your pain, your story is your currency. And currency can be audited. It can be recorded. It can be subpoenaed by a friend you ghosted. Tyler Perry proved that in this game. The winner isn't the best storyteller. It's the best archivist. The person who understands that data is the new dagger. Memory, backed up by a cloud server, is the ultimate power. The final, haunting cliffhanger isn't about a reunion or a divorce. It's about silence. Harry extended silence in England. Meghan's quiet pivot away from public life. Perry's contented, untouchable quiet. The three loudest voices in a global drama have gone mute. What happens in the quiet? What deals are brokered in the absence of microphones? What truths are admitted when the cameras are definitively off? Is this the end of the Sussex saga, or merely the end of its second act? Is the third act a tragic fall, a stunning comeback, or a quiet fading to black? The world is waiting for a sound, a statement, a sign. But the only lesson so far is that the next sound might just be another click from a vault. Thousands of miles away, the debate is now yours. The courtroom is the comment section. Team accountability or team narrative? Was Tyler Perry right to protect himself with receipts? Or did he betray a sacred trust for leverage? Is Harry's flight a coward's escape or a philosopher's quest for truth? Is Meghan a master strategist exposed? Or a woman being crucified for playing a game whose rules everyone knows? The lines are drawn. The evidence is on the table. State your case. Defend your verdict. This story is being written in real time by court of public opinion. And your comment is part of the transcript.